In the months and years ahead, there will be a lot of debate and discussion about the causes of the fires and the responses to them, whether there are things that could have been done better, whether there are lessons we need to learn. It is proper that there should be such a debate. I note that the Victorian Premier, John Brumby, has announced that there will be a Royal Commission into the bushfires with a wide brief. That is deeply appropriate. For my part, I will be following the Royal Commission closely. The events of the weekend were so dramatic and demonstrate such a heightened level of threat that we all need to be willing to rethink our previous beliefs and assumptions and to look at the facts and look at the evidence afresh. With that important qualification, let me make some observations about bushfires and our response to them. First, global warming. On Saturday, I and other Melburnians lived through the hottest day Melbourne has ever experienced, 46.4 degrees Celsius. Many other places in Victoria also got their highest temperature ever. It came on top of the second driest January we have ever had, a pitiful 0.8 millimetres of rain for the whole month. And that has come on top of a decade of drought for Victoria, which has been drying out since 2001. These are, of course, precisely the conditions of extreme bushfire threat. Bushfires are increasing in frequency and severity around the world. We have seen this in Greece, we've seen it in California, we've seen it elsewhere. And the bushfires in Victoria stand in sharp, ironic contrast to the floods and storms in North Queensland. But they are all part of the same phenomenon, global warming, climate change. Scientists have been warning us for years now that if we do not curb our carbon emissions, we will create more frequent, more extreme weather events. More droughts, more bushfires, more floods, more storms. Saturday was a foretaste of the weather that lies in store. We have a duty, a moral responsibility, not to leave to our children and grandchildren a world in which days like Saturday become commonplace. Secondly, after an event such as this, there are always those who will see the bush, the forests, as the enemy. Their reaction is to want to chop the trees down. The member for O'Connor has been vocal on this matter yesterday and again today. These calls are understandable, but in my view, they are totally wrong. Far from the forests being our enemy, it is we who are theirs. The authorities have made plain enough their view that a number of these fires were deliberately lit by people. Another of the fires was the consequence of a cigarette butt discarded carelessly. Another was caused, we heard today, by a faulty power pole. The member for O'Connor says we used to have roads and we used to have bulldozers through the forests. Well, those roads are still there, and those roads are sadly precisely how many of the fires originate. Furthermore, the CSIRO has given evidence to a parliamentary committee, which I chair, the Treaties Committee, evidence which shows that the parts of Australia which are becoming hotter and drier are precisely those areas where human settlement has occurred: the eastern seaboard, southern Australia, south-west Western Australia. Dr Clive McAlpin, the Senior Research Fellow from the University of Queensland School of Geography, Planning and Architecture, says it's because of human modification of the land surface through changes in native vegetation cover and land use. Modelling of the impacts of vegetation cover change on regional climate done by Dr McAlpin and other researchers shows that areas which have been cleared are 0.1 to 0.6 degrees Celsius warmer in eastern Australia than before the clearing, and that summer rainfall is 4 to 12% less. The analysis shows land clearing has contributed to hotter droughts during El Niño years. Clearing of native vegetation appears to be accentuating the impact of recent El Niño droughts by increasing the number of hot days greater than 35 degrees Celsius and by increasing the number of dry days during drought events. According to Dr McAlpin, the clearing of vegetation changes the way wind moves over the land surface and reduces the incidence of formation of rain-bearing clouds. This is yet another of those feedback loops where problems start out small and get quite out of hand. Cutting down Australian forests changes wind and rainfall patterns and makes the countryside hotter and drier. If we cut down our forests, we will turn Victoria into a desert. What we need to do now is to re-establish our forests. Indeed, we should be trying to re-establish our rainforests. These areas are much more resistant to fire than eucalypt forests. They bring much-needed rain and water for our dams and agriculture, and I believe the way to build and secure a healthy future for Victoria and to prevent a repeat of Saturday is not by cutting down our forests, it's by having more of them. Third, arson. I totally support the remarks of the Attorney-General yesterday that committing arson carries within it all the ingredients of the offence of murder. The sentences for arsonists should reflect this. If the legal system is not delivering this outcome, it should be altered to do so. Whether this means increasing the sentences applying to arson or means charging people who commit arson with murder or attempted murder and making any necessary changes to the law about intent and the like, I have an open mind on. But the basic legal principle is quite clear. If someone drops a brick into Melbourne's Bourke Street Mall from a tall building, not caring whether the brick hits someone or not, the law refers to this as recklessly indifferent, and the brick does hit and kill someone, they can be charged and convicted of murder. It's quite foreseeable that dropping a brick into a crowded place will kill someone. Similarly, if you light a fire on a day like Saturday, it's absolutely foreseeable that you could kill someone. And in my book, it's murder if someone dies as a result. The people who light these fires are despicable, contemptible, low-life, and the legal system must protect us from them. Fourth, the issue of stay or flee. As I said earlier, the Victorian Government has established a Royal Commission to examine the fires, and no doubt it will look at the number of deaths of people in cars and people in their homes and the advice that was given to them in great detail. One thing I'll be particularly interested in is its findings concerning underground shelters or bunkers. I read one story of a couple who survived with their child because the mother had nagged her partner into building one. They were able to shelter in it. I will be interested in the way we are able to build effective underground shelters. It strikes me that they may have a key role to play in saving people who decide to defend their property but who are then confronted with a fire much larger and more terrible than they had imagined, or people who have simply been caught out, being unaware of the fire's sudden approach.